Summer is almost over, but I can't very well let the season go by without taking another look at Toonami, my major introduction to anime, and chances are, yours as well. It can't be overstated just how important Toonami was to anime nerds of a certain age, mainly because after its return some years back, Toonami just doesn't have the effect it once had. You see, when it returned to the airwaves back in 2012, the landscape of television had drastically changed in the 5 years it was absent. With the rise of broadband internet and the proliferation of streaming services, television is now practically on demand and more readily available to meet your individual time constraints. No longer are we setting our schedules to coincide with the networks. This increase in availability naturally extends to anime. Right now, if you want to watch anime, there are plenty of legal and studio supporting services that allows you to do so. This didn't exist even 9 years ago. So with all that in mind, what purpose does Toonami serve nowadays? If you wanted to watch any anime that's on the block, you could wait until Saturday night to tune in, or you could open up Crunchyroll, Hulu, Amazon, or what have you and watch it there at your leisure. And therein lies the conundrum. It wasn't just that Toonami had anime for us to watch, it was often the only means we had to watch anime, which made them a kind of gatekeeper to quality entertainment. Without the lack of availability, Toonami lacks the endearing appeal. It's no wonder Cartoon Network brought back Toonami as a late-night block, seeing as how the only people who would tune in are 20-somethings looking for a nostalgia trip, as their recent announcement of rebroadcasting uncut episodes of Outlaw Star more than proves. Not to say it doesn't have its place, nostalgia is a very real and very valid drive, but quite frankly, Toonami just doesn't serve the same purpose it once did. However, considering that Anime Abandon is also predicated upon nostalgia, I'd be remiss if I was too hard on today's Toonami. I guess I'm just glum about this current generation's lack of future anime nostalgia. I do catch myself worrying about the day when I inevitably come across a BuzzFeed clickbait article asking if anyone here remembers Sword Art Online. Still, there's no harm in revisiting old memories, especially when those old memories are also revisiting old memories. And what better way to kick things off than to talk about what probably put Toonami on the map. No, screw it, it did put Toonami on the map. That's right, we're finally digging into Dragon Ball Z, specifically the movie, The World's Strongest.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. But there's no school like the old school.
I'm gonna level with all of you. I have a very specific purpose with this episode, and it has nothing to do with covering DBZ as a series or even the history of it, because, honestly, it's been done. To death. When you create a media franchise as popular and as long-lasting as Akira Toriyama has, the talking points will be bulleted and indexed to the nth degree. From an educational standpoint, there's very little I can say that would both be empirically accurate and be news to you, the viewer. Likewise, I'm not interested in talking about my own personal history with the series because mine is no different than yours. I watched the series growing up, from Raditz arriving on Earth to Gohan using the Pain of Loss to finally decimate Cell. All the while, my dad yelled at me for watching what he called a stupid show about fighting. He wasn't wrong. But what I do want to accomplish with this episode is to examine Dragon Ball Z as a curiosity, and ask the question that I think deserves an answer the most. Why has DBZ been so endearingly and so immensely popular for nearly 20 years since it was first broadcast on Cartoon Network? And I hope to accomplish this using The World's Strongest as a guide. Why? Because as a movie, I feel it presents the series at its most distilled. Or its least complicated, if you prefer. Not to put too fine a point on it, but when the story started going off into ridiculous power level nonsense and fusions and earring fusions and god tiers after god tiers, it gets a bit much. Needless to say, everything that happened after the start of the Boo saga was a mistake.
If you think I'll let history repeat itself, you got another thing coming.
I'm not trying to marry your son. I don't even want to date him, all right? It's never gonna happen, so can it?
Why not? Hell no!
Also, I chose The World's Strongest because, if memory serves correctly, this was one of the movies that was broadcast on Toonami, so there's no wishy-washy explanation like I had with Yu Yu Hakusho. This is Toonami month. This was on Toonami. Case closed. Which was on Adult Swim, but never mind that. This is The World's Strongest. We begin with Oolong and Gohan scaling a mountain to find the Dragon Balls, which have mysteriously started to gather around this mountainous area. And why isn't Gohan flying? I mean, it's established that this is happening after the Saiyan saga, so he should be able to. Hell, you could make a business out of it. Just charge a bunch of rich yuppies for a ride up to Mount Everest just so they can say they made the trek. People would pay out the nose to be able to say they rode a child. Wow! You know what? Never mind.
What exactly are you gonna ask the Eternal Dragon anyway?
Huh?
So you're trying to tell me that when presented with the opportunity to have any one of his wishes granted by a mystical otherworldly dragon, Oolong would use it to get himself a pair of panties. Twice. Yeah, remember when Oolong wish-blocked Emperor Pilaf and got himself a pair of panties off a hot babe? Yeah, wasn't that great? Well, apparently they didn't figure we'd remember that, and now we're trampling the snow all over again. I mean, if you had to have the joke, why not just have Oolong complete the set and wish for a bra? Why would he need lingerie anyway? Why have the Dragon Balls been mysteriously gathering in such a location? Because Dr. Cochin here has a wish of his own, to free his fellow Dr. Wheelo from his icy tomb, and his wish is granted. Of course, Oolong and Gohan set to investigate, but suddenly they're ambushed by clearly leftover art assets from the Cybermen fight.
Mr. Piccolo.
Gohan, what are you doing here?
No, what are you doing here, Piccolo? Gohan has an actual narrative reason for being up here in the Himalayas or wherever, but you're just here, blasting away at ice. You're about one snow shovel away from being the creepy neighbor at the beginning of Home Alone. You know, that's actually pretty interesting. Mouth beams in Dragon Ball Z are usually only done by antagonists, so I guess Piccolo hasn't really completed his face turn just yet, but considering he's been Gohan's surrogate dad for like the last year, you'd think he would've... Oh, shut up, alright? I just liked the show as a kid. Get off my back. Though Piccolo saves the day, it's only a moment later that he's overwhelmed and knocked out, leaving Oolong and Gohan to leave his ass behind. Wait, what? Yeah, they just up and leave, not knowing or caring what might have happened to Piccolo. You got a brass set on you, kid.
Gohan was gone for 3 days and he wouldn't tell me where he was or what he was doing. This is all your fault, you know. He hardly studies at all and he's always out playing because you let him.
And you're what, his yoga instructor? You're his mom! He's 5 years old. Take away his Game Boy, make him sit in the corner, and punish him, why don't ya? But Gohan's fate is worse than Time Out, as the movie decides that now is a perfect time to take the brown acid and have a song about Gohan being inundated with homework and how much he likes Piccolo. Yeah, they edited this part out of the Toonami broadcast.
That's strange. He never used to fall asleep while studying before. I hope he's all right. Oh no, my little boy's becoming a delinquent right before my very own eyes.
Your 5-year-old has super strength, can fly, shoot energy beams out of his hands, and is capable of doing advanced calculus. I think you'll be just fine. Meanwhile, Kame House receives an uninvited guest in Dr. Cochin, who demands that Master Roshi follow him to see Dr. Wheelo, or else Bulma here will— oh cripes, why are we zooming in on his gums? Ugh. You just know that Dr. Cochin here is the kind of old geezer that smells like bouillon cubes and gefilte fish. News of Roshi's and Bulma's abduction meets the ears of Goku during a hot bath in an oil drum, or as it's known in Kansas, a 5-star spa. Anyone else get the feeling that Goku, when you really break him down, is just what would happen if Superman were raised by hillbillies?
Anime Abandoned will return in a moment. Anime Abandoned now continues.
And here's a familiar scene, Goku leaving his family to go fight trouble. And you wonder why Gohan formed an emotional bond with a 6-foot-tall slug man. Back with Roshi, Dr. Kochin sends some creations his way to test his might, but apparently he can't mash the button fast enough and goes down for the count. It's later revealed that all of this, Dr. Kochin wishing away the ice, the abduction of Roshi and Bulma, were all in service to revive Dr. Wheelo, who has been reduced to a giant brain in a jar. Look, movie, the last thing I need right now is 8-Man After flashbacks.
Just try to imagine the combination of the greatest scientific mind in the world and the strongest fighter in the world. With that type of power, Dr. Willow would be unstoppable. Sounds like a brilliant plan, don't you think?
You're insane.
And in no time, Dr. Willow will be ruler of the world.
Okay, even though the Ocean dub is often treated like a red-headed stepchild, it does have its moments. Sure, that line and delivery was all kinds of cheesy, but when your role calls for an evil, mad scientist who's attempting to pull a Get Out, it's appropriately broad and fun. Oh, yeah. Get Out spoilers in like 5 seconds ago. Before Bulma is forced to tell the good doctors about Goku, he does her the favor and shows up at their door. And from here on out, the movie becomes a veritable game of death, with Goku taking down each one of Dr. Kochin's creations while he goes through the lab's many and seemingly pointless levels. I mean, what in the world did Dr. Wheelo and Kochin need with all this open space anyway?
If you look for it, you can see these little dots come into the upper right-hand corner of the screen.
In the industry, we call them cigarette burns.
But look, seems Goku is being frozen today! Who can save him now? It's at this moment that I think we can really see where the appeal of DBZ lies. The clear-cut good guys, the unquestionable bad guys, the posturing between blows, the dramatic entrances. This is wrestling. Look, I know I'm a fan, but hear me out. This right here is Rikidozan, the Japanese wrestler. He was nothing short of a cultural icon in Japan during the 50s and 60s, having had matches with legends like Lou Thesz and Freddie Blassie. His matches, when viewed from today's modern sensibilities, are pretty dry and relied more on simple strikes than complicated submissions and theatrics. Ain't no one was throwing dragon screw neck whips or Canadian destroyers, but nevertheless, these matches were compelling enough television that 2 of them are among the most watched programs in Japanese history. And he set them during a time when a fraction of households in Japan actually had televisions. Said matches, though not always, typically followed a pattern. A friend of Rikidozan's would start the match, and he would just get the crap kicked out of him from pillar to post. But just as it seems the heel is about to finish him off, Rikidozan comes and saves his friend. Sometimes he even befriends the heel after the match, having earned each other's respect. Gee, I wonder where I heard this before. It's no secret that professional wrestling inspired many an anime genre, let alone specific titles. Remind me to go into AJW when we finally get to Dirty Pair, by the way. But really, the relationship works both ways, with anime often inspiring ideas that would wind up back in professional wrestling. It continues to this day, but in more direct terms.
Come on, Byron Xavier here. He's obviously Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. Don't you know anything?
The appeal of wrestling is the appeal of shonen anime, and by extension, DBZ. A good guy and a bad guy settle their differences, often stemming from a personal history, in the most basic and satisfying way, with the 2 of them going head-to-head using everything they got. Throw in some unnecessary theatrics, some soap opera turns, and garnish it with some near falls, and you got entertainment.
Why? Why won't you stay down?
Now, if only Brock Lesnar could learn to do the Kamehameha. Or at the very least, the Kaioken, which allows Goku to finish off the rest of Dr. Kochin's goons. The 3 soon find their way to Bulma and the nefarious doctors.
What is that? Daddy, is that a human brain?
That's right, Gohan, but it's Dr. Willow's brain. Everyone thought he died 50 years ago, but now he's come back to take over the world using his mad science.
You know, I'm feeling pretty nostalgic. Why don't we blow the dust off an old classic?
But now he's come back to take over the world using his mad science.
Of course!
Memories. Oh, this brain in a jar is trying to take over the world. Is that all? Look, Bulma, you have to realize that your boy Goku routinely fights alien overlords and godlike deities on a near constant basis. A brain in a jar to him is like Gilbert to Goldberg. You know, that's always kind of bothered me about the villain progression in DBZ. We're supposed to buy that Dr. Giro's creations are capable of destroying Goku and friends because... how? Goku had to reach within himself to pull out enough to stop Frieza, who's capable of destroying a planet with just his finger, and now he and the Z Fighters are struggling against... robots? Man-made automatons that could only serve to undercut the threat and menace of villains that came before it in retrospect. I mean, really honestly ask yourself, how strong could Frieza really be if someone out there can just build a robot that's stronger than he is, and if you don't get out of here, I will punch you into the sun? Though Goku is not fond of the idea of having his brain scooped out and replaced with Dr. Willow's, I mean, why would he even have to do that? It's not like Goku doesn't have enough space in his dome for an actual full-size brain anyway. His hand is forced when the doctors summon a mind-controlled Piccolo. What does Krillin do when he sees him launching after his best friend in the world? Duck out of the way! Look, we all know that Krillin is pretty much clown shoes, but you have to understand, from his perspective, his is probably the worst case in the entire show. By the end of the series, he's probably the strongest pure human, which excludes Tien because he isn't all human, in the entire cast, and yet he's constantly being dunked on by everyone else. Say what you want about Yamcha, at the very least he doesn't have to bear the distinction of best humanity has to offer. He's a good fighter who's just way out of his league. Krillin, on the other hand, does bear that distinction, and apparently humanity's best ain't good enough. At the end of the day, being the world's strongest human in the DBZ universe is like being the world's tallest dwarf. Oh my god, I didn't even mean to do that! With seeing his two dads fight each other, Gohan hits the tipping point and unleashes a wave of power that manages to crack Piccolo's slave crown, and Roshi makes the save on a gun arm-wielding Dr. Cochin. Huh, maybe they should have restrained Roshi after they knocked him the hell out. You know, like they said they did?
Where you got Master Roshi? Tell me now!
So you want to know where Master Roshi has gone to? Well, I've been preparing to turn him into one of my creations.
What?
Either you were lying, or... no, you were lying. Backed up against the wall, Dr. Willow decides enough is enough and just tries to kill everyone, including Dr. Cochin here. Wait, Dr. Willow already had his brain inside of Metal Gear Rex? Why in the holy hell did he even need Goku's body to begin with? What, he wanted the ability to join Chi-Chi on their trips to the mall?
Give me that!
Check it out! It looks like that mud wrestling I showed you on TV once, remember?
He can destroy the universe, and he has to put up with that crap. If you got that reference, by the way. Even a combined force of Kamehamehas can't put down Dr. Willow, but a souped-up Kamehameha from Goku does, knocking him into orbit before finishing him off with the Spirit Bomb. And our movie ends with our cast reenacting the intro to Paranoia Agent. And that is Dragon Ball Z. Perfectly encapsulated. Now, while I went on a bit about why I feel DBZ works, that isn't the whole picture. After sitting through the movie and ruminating on it, I've come to the conclusion that it's more than just the parallels between itself and professional wrestling, it's that it shares the core idea of what makes pro wrestling work: audience investment. Sometimes it's not about whether or not a show has good writing, well-defined characters, and an involving plot. Sometimes it's simply all about getting the audience to care, and that's something DBZ does astoundingly well. DBZ will get you to care about what's going on, not by the strength of the story or the characters, but by the sheer force of the drama and emotion, which is universal. Everyone can connect with Goku by some means, either as a vicarious power fantasy or as a simple hero out to stop the villain. Boo the bad guy, cheer the good guy, and have fun while doing it. It's not complicated, but it never needed to be. It's simple and effective. While this has been fun and everything, I feel like we had our dessert before we had our dinner. So let's shift gears and talk about something more nuanced, relatively speaking. Till next time.